Chapter 1096, The Discovery of Sakurai Yeiko. In the morning, after washing up, Lu Shu drove his taxi out to take a stroll. The scope of activity had expanded this time and he had to run between the Kokushikan University and the official residence of the Collection of Gods. Lu Shu was wondering how he could figure out who the metahuman in the Kokushikan University was. He knew that the Collection of Gods had definitely already began to check on the taxi and Matsuyama Shuji. However, he felt that the investigation was only on the surface level. If the Collection of Gods attacked him, he could easily retreat. However, Lu Shu did not know that the Collection of Gods was more enthusiastic than he thought they would be. After he left his house for less than 15 minutes, someone had entered his rental apartment from the balcony at the back and tried to obtain some clues from the rental apartment. Two of the intelligence officers of the Collection of Gods who were wearing black shoes carefully opened the door of the balcony. The lock on the door did not pose as an obstacle to them at all. The intelligence officers took a look at the house and did not find anything unusual. It seemed like an ordinary rental apartment with no secrets. However, at this moment, they were shocked when they heard the information through their earphones. Then, they immediately retreated from the rental apartment. At the next moment, a black SUV drove in from a distance away. The car looked extremely hardy and intimidating. Sakurai Yeiko alighted from the car and went up the stairs. There was a group of people following behind her. The two intelligence officers were shocked as they did not expect the current leader of the Collection of Gods to be so well informed. They were confused because they were conducting a normal check and did not expect to obtain too much information from the rental apartment. However, even such an important figure came over. It was merely a taxi driver. Was it worth it? Currently, Sakurai Yeiko held the most superior position in the Collection of Gods. Be it mentally or physically, she was the recognized leader. On ordinary days, Sakurai Yeiko lived in seclusion. Ordinary members of the Collection of Gods could not see her at all and felt that it was a privilege to meet her. If anyone could meet her in the Collection of Gods, they would share the news to others joyfully, claiming that they met Lady Sakurai and she was as cold and charismatic as the legends. The two intelligence officers were joyfully surprised. It was a coincidental surprise for them to bump into Sakurai Yeiko. At this moment, Sakurai Yeiko was climbing up the stairs and Saito Rin had just walked out of the house, bumping straight into Sakurai Yeiko and her team. Sakurai Yeiko walked up blatantly without trying to hide herself. Saito Rin was timid and stood to one corner, waiting for Sakurai Yeiko to pass by. Sakurai Yeiko, who was wearing a black suit and high heels, gave off a powerful aura. She was definitely not the girl in the cherry blossom kimono in Lu Shu's mind, and neither was she a quiet girl. In fact, very little people from the Collection of Gods ever saw Sakurai Yeiko. Saito Rin was a student from Kokushikan University. Sometimes, people would say enviously, "Ah, you are a student from Kokushikan University." However, at this moment, as Saito Rin approached Sakurai Yeiko, she felt as though she was an ugly duckling. When Saito Rin passed by the team, Sakurai Yeiko suddenly stopped. "Have you ever talked to Matsuyama Shuji recently?" Saito Rin was stunned for a moment. "Matsuyama-san is a good person, why are you looking for him?" Sakurai Yeiko gave Saito Rin a shot. Saito Rin was stunned for a moment. "Are you Sakurai Yeiko? The one whom they called a goddess back in high school?" Actually, Sakurai Yeiko was a member of Saito Rin's cohort. However, Sakurai Yeiko had stopped going to school. Instead, the Collection of Gods invited a teacher to the official residence of the Collection of Gods to teach her on a one-on-one basis. Moreover, the teachers were not strict and were instead afraid of her. When they held lessons, there were over 10 people wearing suits and sunglasses staring at the teachers. Anyone would be afraid. At this moment, Sakurai Yeiko was stunned too. It had been such a long time since someone called her by that name. In fact, nobody called her that ever since she became the leader of the Collection of Gods. Saito Rin realized that she said something wrong and immediately bowed. Sorry, you are at a much superior status now. Sakurai Yako suddenly smiled. It's all right, don't worry. I just wanted to ask you something regarding Matsuyama Shuji. Saito Rin heaved a sigh of relief. For some reason, when Sakurai Yako smiled, the tension suddenly disappeared. Can I ask why are you looking for him? Saito Rin asked cautiously. She treated Matsuyama Shuji as a friend and would definitely not betray him. Hold on, what's your name? Sakurai Yako suddenly asked. I am Saito Rin. Suddenly, Sakurai Yako became friendly. Chiba mentioned your name before and said that you are a nice person. Are you her good friend? Oh, really? Saito Rin was very surprised. One reason was because the leader of the collection of gods heard her name before. Another reason was because she realized that someone praised her. To put it simply, when one's friend praised one without one knowing, and someone else told one about it, it would make one feel extremely happy. Both of them suddenly became friendly because of the girl named Chiba. Chiba Mahiro, Lu Shu knew her too. Chiba used to like Lu Shu's spy character named Kirihara Yusuke. Chiba Mahiro became friends with Sakurai Yako after hosting her and Lu Shu. They even shopped together, and when they did that, they pretended to be ordinary people and did not bring any bodyguards. Saito Rin had heard Chiba talk about Sakurai Yako before, but she did not take it seriously. Sakurai Yako suddenly asked, Can you tell me if there's anything strange with Matsuyama Shuji recently? Yes. Saito Rin decided to be honest. I feel stressed when talking to him. His tone was slightly agitating. Agitating, or rather, harsh. Sakurai Yako was very tall. Saito Rin had to look up to see her expression. At this moment, she realized that after her sentence, Sakurai Yako's expression brightened up. She was not sure if it was just an illusion. Chapter 1097, All depended on relative strength. Could you be more specific? Sakurai Yako's eyes lit up. There were times when the intuition of a strong woman could not be underestimated. She might be able to understand everything just from your gaze. Sakurai Yako knew that Lu Shu had returned from the Luniverse. How could she not know? She was one of the people who cared most about Lu Shu's whereabouts. Thus, when she encountered danger, would the young man return if he knew that she was in peril? Sakurai Yako had not been very sure, but the warm gaze last night caused her to lose sleep. She did not sleep that night. She depended on training to stabilize her feelings. Last night, she looked through her wallet again and again. She looked at the few 100,000 yen in her wallet. Although this was not a large amount of money, and she only had a dozen or so notes, she felt assured when she looked at them. This disturbing night finally caused Sakurai Yako to decide that she would take a look for herself. She wanted to know what Matsuyama Shuji was up to. Sakurai Yako had already understood what was happening. She was happy, but not because she had found him. She was happy because he had come when she was in danger. They had not been crowned with their new identities when they last met. If they reunited, one of them was the 9th Heavenly King of the Heavenly Network and the head of the Weiwu Army, while the other was the leader of the collection of gods. Suddenly, Sakurai Yako was perturbed. Would there be a distance between them because of their changed identities? She did not think so. Saito Rin watched as Sakurai Yako turned and left. She saw a smile on Sakurai Yako's face that could not be concealed. Was this the reserved leader of the collection of gods in the legends? It was said that Sakurai Yako was very strict and cold. Back then, when the conservatives completely eliminated the jingoists in the collection of gods, everyone remembered the ruthless killing. Saito Rin, and a majority of the collection of gods members, did not know that this was like the cherry blossom kimono and the black formal wear. Sakurai Yako had two moods. Find that taxi. I want to know where he is, said Sakurai Yeko. Then, she sat in the back of the black SUV like a queen. Saito Rin did not hear this. She was thinking about what interactions Matsuyama Shuji had with Sakurai Yeko. At first, she could see that the collection of gods was investigating Matsuyama Shuji. Had her explanation caused the collection of gods to give up on this investigation? She sighed lightly. Had something happened? Lu Shu wobbly sauntered near the entrance of Kokushikan University. His taxi had been parked elsewhere. The Heavenly Network had prepared a new identity for Lu Shu, but he did not use it. He had decided to make full use of the identity of Matsuyama Shuji before taking on the new identity. A new identity had been prepared for him as he knew that his identity as Matsuyama Shuji had been destroyed last night. Saito Rin and the slave Nakagawa Masaharu had interactions with each other. If spies had appeared in the collection of gods, he might have been targeted by the slave owner. Thus, it was better to prepare an identity for him. This was the advantage of having the support of the Heavenly Network. He did know that the taxi he had parked a few kilometers away had been surrounded by a large number of collection of gods members. The car had been overturned. But after some surveillance, they still could not find Lu Shu. Now, the members of the collection of gods were scared. They did not know whether Sakurai Yeko would flare up if they had lost Lu Shu. Although Sakurai Yeko was very cruel towards her enemies, she was not very harsh when she thought about her own people. This was the reason many conservatives were hell-bent on following her. But even if she was tolerant, she could not make any mistakes in her actions. The member who was in charge of finding Lu Shu took the plunge and reported to Sakurai Yeko. We've lost him, we can't find him anywhere. The members of the collection of gods, who were waiting for their punishment, suddenly heard Sakurai Yeko laugh. That's normal. If you are able to find him, then that's not him. The members of the collection of gods were puzzled. Was this a puzzle, or a tongue twister? Sakurai Yeko meant that if they were unable to find him, it was not because they were incapable. It was because Sakurai Yeko knew that Lu Shu was very powerful. What kind of deity was Matsuyama Shuji? The large organizations had suffered heavy losses. The collection of gods had dropped to a second-rate organization, but became a first-rate organization after the battle at Tiger's Back. Was the collection of gods stronger? No, the other organizations had become weaker. Whether they were a first or second-rate organization all depended on their relative strength. Not many organizations on Earth could be considered powerful, except the Heavenly Network. But the collection of gods had no intention of competing with the Heavenly Network. To the Heavenly Network, they did not have the concept of first or second-rate organizations. They were the benchmark. They were invincible. One of Sakurai Yeko's most trusted female practitioners looked at her. There was a rumor in the core of the collection of gods. They knew that back then, the ninth Heavenly King had killed Nojawa Takenabu, Takashima Tairatsu, and the rest. But what was most interesting about the rumor was that there were feelings between the ninth Heavenly King and the leader of the collection of gods. No one in the collection of gods hated Lu Shu. They supported the strong. They would respect and admire whoever was able to kill the leaders of the collection of gods. Thus, if someone asked which overseas practitioner the collection of gods admired, the first person would be Nyeting, and the second person would be the ninth Heavenly King. Some people even felt that they were tied at first place. After all, Nyeting had never killed any leaders from the collection of gods. At this moment, the middle-aged female practitioner who typically served Sakurai Yeko suspected that the ninth Heavenly King had arrived. It was rare for Sakurai to be so free of worry. But she did not tell anyone about this. She secretly heaved a sigh of relief. If that person came, they would not die under the hands of those with marks on their bodies who caused so much trouble for them. She no longer had to worry about Sakurai Yeko's safety. She suddenly felt very relaxed. Lu Shu slowly walked around Kokushikan University. He was not thinking about whether his identity would be exposed, But how to use the metahuman in Kokushikan University to reel in his prey? Lu Shu remembered that Saitu Rin was from the Faculty of Law. Thus, the metahuman should be from the Faculty of Law as well. His backup identity was a student from the Faculty of Science and Engineering. It was ready for him to use any time. The original person had already left Tokyo silently. This was Lu Shu's first time here. He did not know where the Faculty of Law was. He walked around for a long time, but could not find it. He was about to ask someone for directions when he was pulled aside by someone. "Hello, how do I go to the Faculty of Law?" Lu Shu was dumbfounded. Why was his line stolen? He was silent for 2 seconds. Then, he said, "Walk straight for 300 meters, then turn right. Walk another 100 meters before turning left. There are a lot of people there, so ask them for directions." From Oda Masako's Distress, plus 666. Lu Shu felt that something was wrong. The person was going in the same direction as him. He observed her and realized that she was wearing a pair of gloves. Was it to conceal her mark of a slave? Lu Shu observed her even more closely. There were waves of energy from her. She was a Class C. Chapter 1098, Chiba Mahiro. Oda Masako, who had asked Lu Shu for directions, was dumbfounded. Lu Shu sensed that she wanted to attack, but in the end, she did not deliberately complicate the issue. She held it in and walked towards the inside of Kokushikan University. Oda Masako seemed like a student as well. She was probably around the same age as him. Under normal circumstances, student practitioners rarely attacked anyone. They had not killed anyone either. Thus, it made sense for her not to further provoke him. Among the slaves, there were ambitious people like Nakagawa Masaharu, and ordinary people who had no choice. There was no way to differentiate them from their appearances. Thus, Lu Shu decided to observe. Oda Masako asked 2 or 3 students for directions towards the Faculty of Law and continued walking in. Lu Shu slowly followed her. Lu Shu was quite sure that Oda Masako was a slave. All the practitioners and metahumans in the country had to wear the uniform of the Collection of Gods and register with the Collection of Gods. Oda Masako did not wear the uniform. Clearly, her aim was the Faculty of Law. Before this, Nakagawa-senpai had known where the metahumans were concentrated. If Oda Masako said that she was not a slave, Lu Shu would not believe her. While Lu Shu was thinking, he suddenly saw Oda Masako turn around. She looked at Lu Shu fiercely. Lu Shu asked curiously, "What's wrong?" Oda Masako's expression turned dark. "You have been following me. Don't you have something to say?" Lu Shu was dumbfounded. Something to say? He paused for 2 seconds. "How do I go to the Faculty of Law?" Oda Masako was dumbfounded. Was this on purpose? When Oda Masako had asked Lu Shu for directions, she had been irritated by his response. Now, she was even more irritated when Lu Shu asked her the same thing. From Oda Masako's Distress, plus 666. Oda Masako remembered what had happened. Suddenly, she laughed coldly. "Turn left and walk 100 meters, then turn right. There are a lot of people there, so ask them for directions." Lu Shu asked curiously, "Do you know how to get there?" Oda Masako laughed coldly. "Of course." Lu Shu was even more curious. "Then why don't you tell me?" "You're right." From Oda Masako's Distress, plus 666. Lu Shu could confirm that although Oda Masako had the same slave owner as Nakagawa Masaharu, they were 2 very different people. If Nakagawa Masaharu was in front of him, he would be preparing to kill Lu Shu. Furthermore, Lu Shu was right. Oda Masako did not know how to continue. Her IQ was not of much help. Suddenly, Oda Masako's expression turned calm. "Why are you going to the Faculty of Law?" She had sensed that something was not right. Since Lu Shu did not know how to go to the Faculty of Law, he was definitely not a law student. Thus, why was he going there? When you traveled to a place with an aim and met a suspicious person on the way, you would subconsciously think that they had the same objectives as you. This was an instinct that most people would have. In reality, Lu Shu had the same objective as her. While Oda Masako was walking, Lu Shu had seen the white mark on her wrist. The space between her sleeve and glove had been exposed while she was walking. Lu Shu laughed cheerily. I was joking with you. I know where the Faculty of Law is. Then why were you following me? Oda Masako asked in a cold voice. Lu Shu paused for 2 seconds. Then, he said, I want to see whether you are traveling in the right direction. Oda Masako had never met such a troublesome person in her entire life. She was about to attack Lu Shu, when Lu Shu was suddenly dumbfounded. A girl was walking towards him. She brought back many memories. Chiba Mahiro. Chiba Mahiro was not particularly good-looking, but she was attractive enough. When Lu Shu acted as Kirihara Yusuke and came here, he was surprised by her deep feelings towards him. Back then, Lu Shu had frankly admitted that Kirihara Yusuke was dead. He was worried that Chiba Mahiro would sink deeper and deeper. As his identity as Kirihara Yusuke collapsed, the relationship between Lu Shu and Chiba Mahiro was completely cut off. He thought that he would never see her again in his life, but here she was. Lu Shu had a lasting impression of Chiba Mahiro, as the massive amounts of money in her attic had shocked him. It was Lu Shu's first time seeing so much cash. He even made guesses about what her parents did for a living. But Lu Shu suddenly realized that perhaps Chiba Mahiro was the person the slave owner was looking for. Lu Shu knew that Chiba Mahiro was a fire-type metahuman. As a sensory type, Lu Shu could sense that Chiba Mahiro's strength had silently reached Class A. Lu Shu was shocked. Chen Zuan and the rest had started training much earlier than Chiba Mahiro, but Chen Zuan had put in a lot of effort before advancing to Class A, Cheng Qiuqiao too. How did Chiba Mahiro advance so quickly? Furthermore, Chiba Mahiro seemed to be aloof of worldly affairs. Back then, her awakening had been a coincidence. She had awakened when Lu Shu knocked her unconscious. Her extreme sadness from Kirihara Yusuke's death had caused her to advance. Lu Shu could understand this, but what came after? What was the following reason? No wonder the slave owner wanted to find her. Saito Rin had probably leaked something to her boyfriend. Thus, the slave owner badly wanted to take Chiba Mahiro as his slave. Sakurai Yeiko was not a good target as there were many people around her. She was very strong as well. Although Chiba Mahiro was very strong, she did not have much combat experience. She probably had not even killed fish or ants. Thus, the slave owner planned to control her. Then, they would work together to defeat Sakurai Yeiko. Lu Shu suddenly felt that the slave owner deserved to die. Chiba Mahiro, a compassionate and aloof girl, had been involved in this terrible situation. At first, Lu Shu had wanted to use the metahuman in Kokushikan University as bait. When he realized who she was, he got rid of this plan. But Chiba metahuman was not safe. Once the slave owner was able to control a sensory-type metahuman, Chiba Mahiro's identity as a metahuman would be exposed. But Lu Shu was never someone who would only defend after being attacked. He decided that he would seize the slave owner controlling Oda Masako and Nakagawa Masaharu. Then, he would kill the rest of the slave owners. Chiba Mahiro walked past Lu Shu and Oda Masako in an innocent and naive manner. It was as if she had not sensed any murderous intent. Chapter 1099, Selection of the Metahuman. Oda Masako, who was in front of Lu Shu, did not know that both of them had come over with the same motivation. However, Lu Shu had figured out the real target before Oda Masako. In addition, Oda Masako was rather lucky as Lu Shu currently viewed him as a slave who was forced instead of someone as ambitious as Nakagawa Masaharu. One should know that if they ended up on Lu Shu's blacklist, their lives would not be long. Lu Shu did not directly use his identity as a second-year student from the Faculty of Science and Engineering, as he was very careful. The student who was in charge of intelligence was not a practitioner nurtured by the Heavenly Network. Instead, he was an ordinary person called Kajiyama Hiroshu. He was born and raised in Japan. Like Taniguchi Bandai, he took over his father's aspirations. His father had acted as a spy for 20 years and almost became a true Japanese. He spoke the language, used a Japanese name and ate Japanese food. Kajiyama Hiroshu was an ordinary person. If Lu Shu used his name and got into trouble, his life would probably be drastically affected in the future. Unlike Taniguchi Bandai, Kajiyama Hiroshu was not as powerful. Based on the intelligence report, Kajiyama Hiroshu did not receive any special training and could be regarded as an ordinary person. Taniguchi Bandai spied using multiple names and Kajiyama Hiroshu went to school like an ordinary person. Then, he contacted his home country and hoped that he could do something useful. After that, the Heavenly Network conducted some assessments to ensure that he was suitable. As compared to Taniguchi Bandai, Kajiyama Hiroshu was like an enthusiastic freelancer. If Lu Shu had not said that he needed to use an identity of a person from the Kokushikan University, the Heavenly Network would not have employed Kajiyama Hiroshu. This time, in order to ensure Lu Shu's safety, the Heavenly Network only told Kajiyama Hiroshu that he needed to hide for a period of time and did not tell him that his identity would be used. This was unfair. However, the Heavenly Network had to consider many more things than if it was fair or not. Kokushikan University's reputation was rather decent. If Lu Shu did not get exposed, Kajiyama Hiroshu could continue to get a degree from the Kokushikan University, look for a decent job and lead a better life. Of course, the Heavenly Network gave him subsidies and a salary, but it was not convenient for him to spend them. Lu Shu was also thinking that if he exposed himself, he would need to approach Sakurai Yeko and ask the collection of gods to leave Kajiyama Hiroshu alone. He thought that this small request should work. It should. Initially, Lu Shu thought that he got along quite well with Sakurai Yeko. Back then, Lu Shu was the swordplay instructor for Sakurai Yeko. Although he did not teach her any legitimate things, they had earned money by conducting coaching classes together. Lu Shu felt that it was considered as starting a business together, and their relationship should be rather solid. However, he was not very confident as, after all, back then Sakurai Yeko was a little girl who had just gained consciousness after being brainwashed by the conservatives. Now, she was the leader of the entire collection of gods and some things might not work on her anymore. To be honest, Lu Shu acknowledged the friendship between them. After he finished his spy duties, Lu Shu occasionally thought about the girl wearing a sakura kimono, because to him, her presence was an unique memory. Of course, even though Sakurai Yeko had changed, Lu Shu could not do anything about that. However, he felt that Sakurai did not change that much as he could sense it when he saw her in the Kirihara dojo. Oda Masako said coldly as he looked at Lu Shu, "Stop following me or you will bear the consequences." Before he finished his sentence, Lu Shu had already turned and left without any delay. Since he had already found Shiba Mahiro, he would not need to bother about entertaining Oda Masako anymore. Even if he wanted to find out more about the slave owner from Oda Masako, it was better to keep an eye on the ambitious Nakagawa Masaharu instead. Oda Masako's mood was suddenly disrupted. Why did he stop him from finishing his sentence? At this moment, Oda Masako heard someone call his name and when he turned around, he saw Nakagawa Masaharu. Nakagawa Masaharu frowned. "What took you so long?" "I didn't know how to get to the Faculty of Law." Oda Masako sounded as though he was very annoyed by Nakagawa Masaharu. "Cut the nonsense." Nakagawa Masaharu frowned. "I chose some possible hidden metahuman suspects. You have to finish checking them out today. Master is growing impatient." Master, you made it sound so natural calling him that, sneered Oda Masako. Nakagawa Masaharu said slowly, if you can get rid of the mark, I will be impressed by your tone. What if these few suspects are not the real target, said Oda Masako. Nakagawa Masaharu's face turned black. You just have to follow my instructions. I will know what to do even if they are not the real target. Last night, Nakagawa Masaharu did not force Saito Rin to reveal the metahuman's identity. However, if they could not find the real person later, he had no choice but to ask Saito Rin. Oh, by the way, head to the Faculty of Science and Engineering first and let Suzuki Junichi know about this. As he spoke, Nakagawa Masaharu passed Oda Masako a photo and left. After Lu Shu left, he did not follow Chiba Mahiro. Instead, he went straight to the public toilet and came out of the toilet as Kageyama Hiroshu. He did not have to follow Chiba Mahiro. After all, he knew where her house was. Moreover, Chiba Mahiro's identity had yet to be exposed or the slave owner hiding behind his back would come instead of Oda Masako. Lu Shu planned on using Kageyama Hiroshu's identity so as to spy in the school compound, and wait for the suspect to fall into his trap. At this moment, Lu Shu's expression suddenly changed. He saw Oda Masako running towards him. Hello, may I ask how do you get to the Faculty of Science and Engineering? Lu Shu said, walk straight for 500 meters, then turn left and head for 300 meters before turning right. Oda Masako bowed and said, thank you, you are much better than another student who helped me earlier on. Lu Shu said slowly, that's the Faculty of Arts. Oda Masako was stunned. I asked for the Faculty of Science and Engineering. Lu Shu kept silent for a few seconds before saying, I don't know either. From Oda Masako's distress, plus 748. Oda Masako felt that the students in this school were all crazy. Everyone F*King gave directions like that? Chapter 1100, Accident during the mission. Lu Shu did not continue talking to Oda Masako and left quickly. He knew that no matter how anxious Nakagawa Masaharu and Oda Masako were, they would not attack some in broad daylight. That was because the collection of God's leadership position was rather stable and if both of them took action and got discovered, Lu Shu was sure that the collection of gods would take immediate actions. Therefore, he casually strolled in the school compound of Kokushikan University to get a feel for the atmosphere in a university. Sometimes, Lu Shu felt that as compared to ordinary students, he lacked a lot of experience. For example, an ordinary high school and university experience. Initially, Lu Shu thought that his life in the Luotian Cultivation College would be normal. However, in order to make him the Heavenly King, Niating did anything he could and made species research, an art subject, feel like some special forces course. Not only did he have to personally collect specimens, he had to help others collect specimens too. Moreover, he encountered the problem with the Kunlun Mountains on his way to collect specimens and became a teacher after he returned. Then, the battle in the Changbai Mountains began. He had always been envious of the free and easy atmosphere in a university but he had never felt relaxed before. Lu Shu sent a message to Zhong Yutong and requested for him to send the map of the Kokushikan University over, as well as the timetable for the Faculty of Law. Chiba Mahiro was carrying a school bag earlier on. Lu Shu thought that she might be on the way to class. Instead of blindly going around, it would be better to wait beside Chiba Mahiro. Similar to China, anyone could sit in a university lecture in Japan. Moreover, anyone could apply and sit in to listen to the lecture even if they were not from the university. They were called the non-degree students. Moreover, they could obtain credits from any ordinary faculties in the university. Following Zhong Yutong's hints, Lu Shu found the building for the Faculty of Law. Lu Shu walked in casually and sat at the last row of the classroom. Chiba Mahiro was sitting in front of him. At this moment, Lu Shu suddenly felt that the atmosphere in the classroom was weird. It felt extremely noisy and many people seemed to be gossiping about him. Lu Shu was curious. Was Kageyama Hiroshu very famous in school? Lu Shu thought that Kageyama Hiroshu was not very handsome. Did he have any other talents? He sat upright. After all, since he was using someone else's identity, he could not embarrass the real Kageyama Hiroshu, right? Lu Shu saw a few girls whispering as they stared at him. Then, he texted Zhong Yutong, "Is Kageyama Hiroshu an idol in school?" Before Zhong Yutong could reply his message, Lu Shu suddenly saw an ordinary-looking girl walk towards him. She said calmly, "Kageyama Hiroshu, I am really sorry that we are unable to continue our relationship. I hope that this will not cause any disturbance to our lives." Lu Shu looked at the girl in shock. Why did he have to deal with these problems left behind by others? At this moment, he realized that Kageyama Hiroshu had once dated the girl and was dumped by her. So, after he entered the room, those who knew about it began to gossip about him, thereby causing the commotion. What on earth? He still texted Zhong Yutong to ask him if Kageyama Hiroshu was an idol in the school. What if *King idol, it was basically a tragedy. At this moment, Lu Shu heard a girl whisper, "Yoshi usually does not even go out. I can't believe that he came to the Faculty of Law to sit in today. How charismatic must Yoshi be? Stop mocking him. I heard some of my friends from the Faculty of Science and Engineering say that Kageyama Hiroshu was a guy with good character and excellent results." However, Yoshi thought that his family background was not good enough and the birthday gift that Kageyama Hiroshu gave Yoshi last month was too cheap. During her birthday party, Yoshi felt embarrassed. "I heard that Kageyama Hiroshu had to borrow money to pay his school fees. My father is his father's colleague. At the age of over 40, his father is still an ordinary employee. Kageyama Hiroshu came from a single-parent family. I heard that from the students from the Faculty of Science and Engineering that his mother left his father because he was too poor." Lu Shu sighed. Why couldn't he accomplish his mission normally for once? He looked at the girl named Yoshi and said, "Please return to your seat, I don't want to talk to you now." Yoshi did not leave. Instead, she said, "Actually, our relationship is not unsalvageable. However, by giving me a toy that was not worth any money during my birthday, which is such an important occasion, do I mean anything to you?" Lu Shu kept silent for a few seconds. Nothing. From Okita Yoshi's Distress, plus 799. Lu Shu loved money. Even if he was a nouveau riche, he still loved money. However, he felt that it was miserable if one measured relationships with money. At this moment, the entire classroom students, including Chiba Mahiro, turned around and looked at them. That included Saito Rin, who had reached the school. The universities in Japan was not as polite and organized as one thought it would be. Some of the international students who lived in Japan knew that there were many more bullying cases in Japanese schools than Chinese schools. Moreover, many of the students were very materialistic. It was human nature for one to be materialistic, and Lu Shu did not feel that there was anything wrong with that. However, he was very annoyed by Yoshi as Kageyama Hiroshu and his father was not poor because of a lack in skills. The bonus and salary given by the Heavenly Network was sent to the Chinese special account and they could not transfer it over to Japan, as they could not afford to leave any transaction records behind. For some reason, Lu Shu felt that Chiba Mahiro's gaze was fixated on him. And at that moment, his expression changed. Okita Yoshi was angry. "Do you want to be strangers in the future?" Lu Shu smiled, "That's what you said, I can't decide." Okita Yoshi was stunned. "Why can't you decide?" Lu Shu smiled. "Because wishes that are said out loud will not come true." Okita Yoshi was infuriated. From Okita Yoshi's Distress, plus 666. At this moment, the female students in the classroom felt that it was hilarious and thought that Kageyama Hiroshu specially came to take revenge. However, they still looked down on Kageyama Hiroshu as they thought that it was merely the struggle of a weakling. With a bad family background, he was unable to live a good life. No matter how heartless Kageyama Hiroshu was, Okita Yoshi would probably not regret it. At this moment, a commotion could be heard from outside of the campus, as well as the sounds of car engines. Someone exclaimed, "It's the cars of the collection of gods."
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, and we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens.